So one of the comments I made earlier about these problems, we're kind of looking for that place where the answers are the same. And so like for an application problem such as the phone, this is that break-even point. When both companies purchase two phones, they're both going to cost $110 a month. That's the break-even point, which means that if I have fewer than two phones, that should tell me that one of the companies is cheaper, or the bill's cheaper. And if I go more than two phones, that means one of the companies is going to cost more. So understand that if you have a break-even point, that also means that if I go on each side of that point of intersection, that means that somebody's losing or something's costing more money, and especially like go back to my McDonald's problem. At some point, if I get that break-even point, that's beyond that point, that's where the company's going to make profit. But before that, that's where the company's losing money. Here, the break-even point is at 100, which means that before, which is right here, that's where the y equals 25x plus 60, that's where that phone plan is cheaper. But when I go past that, that is when this one's cheaper because it's below the blue line. So this is the cheaper plan if you want to get more than two phones. If you're only wanting to get one phone, then this is the cheaper plan because the break-even point is at two phones. So understand that all system of equations actually tell you three things, especially for application problems, that here's where the amount's the same, and then on each side of that point of intersection, something is costing more money than the other case. All right, we're going to continue. Go ahead and solve the next system of equation problem, again using the substitution method. And when you're finished, turn the video back on. So here we have y is equal to 5x plus 4 times 5x minus 3. And we're replacing the y with the other x expression. So you notice that as we're moving through this lesson, the problems we're working on get a little more challenging each time. So if you didn't go any further than this, the first step is get rid of the parentheses on both sides. And once you get rid of the parentheses, then we're going to combine like terms on each side. And then once you've done that, then that's when we start, that's the simplifying part of the equation. And then after that, that's when we start solving. And we start solving the equation. This is where I start getting the x's on the same side, making sure that number in front of the x is always positive, if at all possible. So here I'm going to multiply through by the 7, here I'm going to multiply through by the 4. So if you haven't done that, please do that. Turn the video off and do that, and then turn the video back on when you're ready to continue. So I'm multiplying the 3, which happens to be a negative 3 to the 7, that's negative 21. And the negative 3 to a negative x, that makes it a positive 3x. On the other side, we're taking 4 times the x, which is 4x, and 4 times the negative 3, which is negative 12. Combine like terms. So in this case here, that's going to be the numbers on the left side is going to be x terms on the right side. So 15 minus 21, that's negative 6 plus 3x. And on the right side, it's 9x minus 12. So, get rid of the parentheses, we combine like terms. Now we get into what's called the solving stage. And I like to get rid of the x terms first. Keep that number in front of the x positive. So 9 minus 3 is 6. Add 12 to both sides. So I get 6 is equal to 6x, and then solve for x. So x ends up being 1. Go back to one of the equations and solve for it. I'm going to probably choose the bottom one, just because I know 7 minus 1 is 6. With the one above it, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, so I'm going to try to keep it as positive as I can. So 7 minus x, we're going to replace x with 1. So it becomes 7 minus 1, which is 6. Oops. So y is equal to 15 minus 3 times 6. So y is equal to, now this is where a lot of students make mistakes. We have a subtraction problem, we also have a multiplication problem. So the multiplication problem is done first. So it's negative 18. So the final answer is negative 3 for 15 minus 18. So the solution here is 1 comma, the x value is 1, negative 3. 1 comma, negative 3. That's the solution. So if I go back up to the first equation I skipped, and if I replace that with a 1, and I replace that with a negative 3, and this with a 1, it should give me the right answer. So the left side is negative 3. The right side, I'm going to have 5 times 1, which is 5, plus 1 minus 3 is negative 2, and 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And if I take 5 plus negative 8, I get negative 3. So it does work. It's the right answer. So using the other equation would be a great way of taking your solution, sticking those two numbers back into the second equation, and make sure that both sides are actually equal to each other. So the next problem is like an application. So Justine and her little brother Evan are running a race because Evan is younger. Justine is giving him a 50-foot head start. Evan runs at a rate of 12.5 feet per second, where Justine runs at a rate of 14.3 feet per second. Write the equation for each runner, and then solve the system. So go ahead and again, we're going to continue with the y equals 2. Be thinking about what's that starting value for both of them. So if I was going to graph this thing, where would I be on the y-axis? What's the rate? So for every second, how much is the answer increasing by? That's the slope. When you have the equations, turn the video back on. So Evan and Justine. So Evan actually, if I'm thinking about graphing this, Evan gets a nice advantage. Evan's starting at 50 meters, where Justine is starting with no head start. So Justine's B value, hopefully you chose 0, and Evan's, hopefully you chose 50. Evan's rate is 12.5 feet per second. So that means that for the first second, Evan's going to be at 62.5, and the next second that would be Evan will be at 75. We're going to keep increasing by 12.5. And 12.5 is the slope here, and for Justine, the 14.3, that's going to be the slope for her. So that's our equations, and again, the 0, you can have it there or not have it there. It's not going to change anything. So we're going to replace the y with the 14.3x. So our equation, we replace the y with that. We end up with, this is our equation. So we go from 2 different variables to 2 variables that are the same. And so before we get started in solving it, think about if I find the answer for x, what does that tell me? What is the x value actually representing in this equation? And when I stick the answer back in, and I find out the y value, what's the y value telling me in this problem? So before you solve it, think about what you think the answers are to those 2 questions. What's the x value represent when I get it? What does the y value represent when I get it? And go ahead and solve the equation. So first step is, I like taking care of the x first. So I would subtract 12.5x from both sides. Keep the number in front of the x is positive, which would be 1.8x equals 50. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 1.8 to get the answer. So 50 divided by 1.8 is about 27.7 repeating. So what does the X mean? So hopefully inside the X tells you how long will it take before Justine catches up with Evan so they're at the same place in terms of the same time. So it's going to take 27.7 repeat seconds. I'd recommend doing the equation that you would just keep that answer in your calculator and not get rid of it. So we're going to multiply that by 27.7 to 14.3 to figure out where are they going to meet at. So 397.2 repeating. So this is time. So how many seconds? And they're running in feet. This is how many feet that they will be away from the starting line when Justine finally catches up with Evan. So what does the answer tell us in terms of the system equation of the race? The x value tells us time it's going to take for Justine to catch up with Evan. The y value tells me how far they are away from the starting line. So your handout for the day is a mix and master number 8. It is due next week. So if your class is Friday, it's due on Tuesday. If your class is on Monday, it's due on Wednesday. You will find some review problems from chapter 1, but also you're going to find the system of equations. You're going to be asked to create tables for some of them, and some of them you're going to be using that substitution method.